It's early morning, St. Johns County. I'm the philosopher pirate, and this is Florida at large. Here, probably making all kinds of noises here. A little bit before sunrise, as usual. Think here. I was looking at the last video. I want to make sure that it's, I don't have the light blinding you. I had to cancel a couple videos. I've been up all night, folks, since about 1 a.m. I've been working in the darkness, not because I'm a creature of the night. There's a lot of bats in this part of Florida. I'll talk about it in the future, hopefully, my undisclosed locations. I'm trying to get a ride today to the courthouse. I'm going to start filing, and on my own. Yesterday, I was going to file a couple days ago. I know I said it in my video, but I wanted to try one more time, folks. I know once I start filing, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to call judges' offices and apologize to them when I start filing, just to let them know. I'm going to call clerks of courts. Folks, I spoke to 8 attorneys yesterday from around the country. I found most of them online, or they found me through my videos. And basically, they all told me they're expensive, in not so many words, and that I can't afford them. And many just admitted to me, folks, there is no justice in this country unless you're wealthy. Now, people have always talked about that. It's written about. I'm going to go back in ancient text. But I'm gonna do my best, whether anything happens with my case or not. I'm gonna try to fix this system. Now, I may die trying, folks. I may die trying, but something needs to be done. I'm just a simple guy, but you know what? There's no work for me. Nobody is hiring me, and until I build a social media presence, which is difficult. It's not easy. As charismatic and as, entertaining as I am, it's not easy to build a following without actually going out and meeting people. Well, that's expensive. How I built most of my subscribers. Yeah, I'm going to get in the pharma business, folks. I'm tired. These videos don't have all the enthusiasm, because when I was shooting videos before, I was actually excited about life. I actually was looking forward to the next day. I was looking forward to the next hour. I was looking forward to the next breath I was going to take. Folks, I really don't care anymore. I'm not at the point where I don't care whether I live or die. I don't want to sound like it's tragic or anything, but there is no future. And I'm beginning to think it's not just for me. I'm talking about more and more folks that are young that don't see a future. And they're blaming boomers. They're blaming older people. They're blaming their parents. They're blaming their grandparents. They're blaming their uncles, their great uncles, their great aunts. And because they're getting sick of told, well, when I was your age, I worked hard. Well, the problem is, folks, it's not possible to do what you did at your age back then for these folks, these young people. They don't have the same opportunity. I don't have the opportunity right now. I'm classified as a Gen X, okay? I do not have the opportunity that I had when I was in my 20s. Can't turn the stupid thing on. There's enough light. It's bothering my eyes. I don't have the opportunity that I had when I was in my 20s. I have tremendously more skills right now. I'm in generally good physical health, other than my arm, and I have some issues, with and I have trouble, folks. I'm having trouble with sleep. I have been for the last 3 or 4 years. Okay, since the incident, I've been having trouble. Sometimes it's been a little better, sometimes it's worse, but I've been having sleep issues all along. And I didn't have sleep issues before. People used to joke that I could sleep through an avalanche. I'd be on ski trips with family and with friends, snow skiing, and and everyone else would get up, take their shower, do their thing, and then they'd be waking. I slept through all of it. Now every little thing wakes me. A bat woke me a frog jumping on it all wakes me now. Just the faintest thing wakes me. A smell. A possum woke me. I could just smell it in my sleep. I don't sleep well anymore. I don't. Every little noise. The strange thing is, on really quiet nights, and I'm quite a distance from the Cape, I can feel the ground. Feel the ground shake. It wakes me. So there's something wrong. There's something wrong. But getting back to the fact, the opportunity has changed. The dollar is worth less, and these young folks, they're blaming the boomers. They're blaming people born 64 and beyond. Honestly, folks, there's not really much of the previous generations, the silent generation and the greatest generation, as these genealogists or whatever I call them. There's not many of them left, and nobody's blaming them. They worked hard, and their kids had a better future than them. Well, the boomers, they didn't. They had a better future than their parents, and what did they do with it? Well, their parents got us to the moon. Folks, it was the greatest generation that won World War II. It was the greatest generation that was in the Korean War, and I guess it wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a defeat. And they got us to the moon. It wasn't the boomers that got us to the moon. Okay, they were just young. The boomers were just coming of age. They were teenagers. And basically, and then of course the Vietnam War, you can't really blame that on the boomers, but get into that time period and the Cuban Missile Crisis, that was the greatest generation, or the so-called silent generation. That was not the boomers. When the boomers took over, you're basically looking at everything that happened, starting in the late 70s on, and it's been a disaster, folks. The boomers have been in charge, and I'm almost a boomer. I mean, I'm close, but I'm Gen X. They killed the space program. Every military conflict seemed to go awry. We had some decent leaders in there, but few and far between, folks. We had the computer age, but what did it really do for us? It made me a living for a while. But did we do anything great as a society? Did we really advance? We've got social media, and and kids today have the Library of Congress. They have the whole world in their fingertips with their phone, and yet, what do they do with it? They take selfies of stupid selfies and exchange them with their friends. It's so. Folks, the boomer generation was a disaster, and Gen X, my generation, according to all this crap, not much better. Much better. So now the millennials, or Gen Y, the millennials, and then after them, the Gen Z, they're screwed. I talk to more and more of them. I'm talking to homeless veterans, and many of them are older than me, and they're boomers. Vietnam veterans and so forth. Some of them are Gen Xers, but they're in a mess. Many of them have other problems, but they're in a mess. There's just not the opportunity. It is impossible today for nearly everyone, including college graduates, and the statistics show that it's over 70% that I've read recently that have. They say it's impossible. They're trying to have a single income job, pay for a house and a car, and and basically and be able to take care of a spouse and a couple kids. It's not possible. It's not possible. It's possible for a smaller and smaller percentage, folks. When in the early '80s, when I was out there getting started, you could work a minimum wage job and pay for an apartment by yourself. Okay? Minimum wage. You can pay for an apartment by yourself. I know. I did it. I was making a little bit more than minimum wage, but I did it. I did it, folks. I did it. Utilities, everything. And I owned a motorcycle and 2 cars. I had a pickup truck and a car. I did that. Okay. And just making a little bit more than minimum wage. And then I hustled as a bartender, started doing that. I did some other endeavors, but I was able to do it. And that was without a college education. I was able to do it. And I was working my way up, and it was possible. It's not possible today. A person cannot work a minimum wage job today here in Florida. I don't know. Maybe there's places in the country. And be able to pay for an apartment, an automobile, and basically, and all the utilities, the insurance, and everything else. It's not possible. Let alone, get a job out of college with meaningful income where you can actually afford a nice place, a decent place in a decent neighborhood, and have a couple kids and support. It's not possible. This is the problem, folks, and we're heading into dangerous territory. Because you're going to have a whole group of resentful youth that can't find work, and they're fighting age, folks. And I don't mean revolution or anything like that, but you got a lot of angry young people. Where does that lead societies when you have a lot of angry young people without any opportunity foreseeable? They don't have hope. And Mr. Trump, with all due respect, you're not giving the young people hope. Because I listen to them with my own ears. You don't talk to people. You talk to advisors who tell you what you want to hear. And that's the problem. I encourage all the including you, Governor DeSantis. I encourage you politicians and you senators and representatives. I don't need to call you all by name. Talk to some homeless people. Talk to some young people. Talk to some young couples. Talk to new college grads. Go talk to some graduate students at the University of Florida. Ask them what's happening. Ask them about their struggles. You're going to get an earful. Unless they worship you, you got to kind of, you got to have a cup of coffee with them, have a beer with them, take a walk with them. So they'll open up. Because you got to realize people are going to be afraid to tell you what they think because it might jeopardize their job, might jeopardize their livelihood. A college kid might think, geez, I better say the right thing to the governor or to this senator. I don't want to mess up my potential career. You're not going to hear anything honest until you actually, go fishing with them, go take a walk, have a couple beers. Then you start getting the truth. And the truth is they're not happy in general. And it's a dangerous place that our society is leading with a lot of angry, disenchanted young folks. Getting back to me, I tried, folks. I tried to hire an attorney. Not possible. I tried reasoning. They threatened me with stalking. I make 2 polite requests to talk to, and guess what? Nothing. You know what that tells me, folks? They're guilty, and justice is only for the wealthy and the elites. I'm going to try to change that. I'm going to challenge the system because you know what, folks? I have nothing to lose. Basically, there's no opportunity for me. So I either, just fade away into oblivion, I commit suicide, or I fight. And you know what? I'm going to fight. And I don't see a choice. I'm not the type that's just going to fade into oblivion and live in squalor and in the forest and the brush and collect public assistance. That's not me, folks. I wouldn't be happy with myself. I'm not going to quit. Quitting is giving up on life. That's killing myself. I'm not going to do that. But I understand how people get there. I'm living it, and I'm talking to folks, and I completely understand. No, I'm going to take the path of combat, and I don't mean violent. physical combat. I'm going to face the world. And if I lose, I lose, because I don't care if it kills me. I don't care if it destroys me at this point, because I have been destroyed. And it's not vengeance I'm seeking, folks. It's justice. I am going to push and push and push so that victims of crime don't ever go through what I've gone through. I'm going to do my best to change the system. I'm going to fight, and I may fail. I may fail, but you know what? If I do fail, I am going to be able to look up in the sky, laying on a beach, hopefully, because the beach, they're not charging for the beaches. All the parks now, they got fees now. Can't even go into a park anymore without paying a fee. Hopefully I can lay on a beach, listen to the water and the gulls, and look at the sky, and then I can, at that point, I can say, hey, I tried. I tried. And I will know that I did not truly fail, because I tried. Anyways, I want to let you know I'm going to give it a shot with the filings. And I guess I'm just going to leave it there. I've got some birds outside. They like to watch me, folks. The hummingbirds hover right outside of my window. Anyways, and the bats at night sometimes. Anyways, it's early morning, St. Johns County. I'm the Philosopher Pirate, and this is Florida at Large.